everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Monica. In today's video, I will be bringing you some anti-MLM content. I'm doing a collab with the Recovering Hunbot, so part one will actually be on her channel, so make sure to also check her channel out. I'll leave her link below. Don't forget to hit like, dislike, subscribe, post notification bell, support me on Patreon, and yeah, so enjoy the video, guys.
Having been a classroom teacher, and like I don't know if I mentioned this in this video or when we were talking, but literally I've taught 3-year-olds through college. I mean, so literally every age range. And it's been a minute since I've been a classroom teacher, but even then, I mean, it was like everybody was a helicopter parent. You know, kids were not basically allowed to like fall down and scrape their knee because it'd be like a big to-do made out of. It's like everything becomes like this overprotection thing. So when are you going to let your kid be a kid? But then also, when are you going to be there for your child, for instance? And this may rub people the wrong way, and it's just going to have to rub them the wrong way because this is the reality. This is what happened. Where I worked, there was a program called Early Juice. Some kids were dropped off like at 6 o'clock in the morning. And we're talking little bitty kids, okay? Being dropped off 6 in the morning. And they would also have after school. So they wouldn't be picked up in between like 6 and 7 at night. So that's like at least 12, 13 hours that, you know, they're away. And then the parents are exhausted, and I get it because, you know, the whole working thing, and kids aren't doing their homework, or their parents aren't helping with their homework. And there just becomes this whole other dynamic of what's going on within the house. And a lot of it was put back on the teachers to teach them all kinds of things that I know I learned as a kid from my mom. You know, that she taught me, that somebody was there and taught me something. And my mom worked. My parents had a restaurant. And there were a lot of times when my parents weren't around and I couldn't stand it. I hated it. I remember this one time, I must have been 5, 6 years old. And with a restaurant, I mean, there's long hours. And I was staying at the house across the street from us. And I got up in the middle of the night and I saw my parents' car there. It was at home. I wanted to go home. And so I'm like this little bitty thing trying to claw my way to get out. And I could not get to my parents. That's all that I wanted. Well, I look at these kids who are going to Early Juice and staying for after school. That's what they want too. They want to be with their parent. But then the parent's not necessarily there either because of all the things they're doing. And then when they do pick them up, then it's like, well, now we have soccer practice or we have this. It's like, well, when are you going to sit down and, you know, do those things? And I've gone off a complete tangent. Things that, you know, parents need to do with their kids, whether it is help them with their homework, check their homework, make sure they're doing their homework, and, you know, all of those things, because a lot of it did come back on the teachers. And I'll give you a quick example of this. When I taught science, this is what I would do because I wanted to make sure that all the kids knew what their homework was. And I taught all these different grades that would all come through the lab. I would put it on the board, the whiteboard in my science lab. I would give it to the classroom teachers. They would put it up there. I had it written on, like, I'd print out pieces of paper, which I would give to every single kid. Plus I had individual websites through Kia where it was all up there as well. What do you want me to do? Come to your house and check to make sure you're doing your homework. I've done everything that I could to make sure everybody knows that there's homework done, but yet homework wasn't being done. And it's not like I gave them, like, you know, a ton of work. It would be something very, very, you know, max 10 minutes to do. So I'm not exactly sure where I was going with this. But it goes back, I guess, to the same thing that you were saying about, you know, when does it become the parent to police and, you know, make sure that their kids are being safe.
Mm-hmm. And to also add to what you were saying too is, I know that since, you know, you were younger, since I was younger, since my brother was younger, and with all the children that are really, you know, tiny itty bitty babies nowadays, the dynamic of the world and of the household has changed. And nowadays it's more common that you can't have you know, that the parents have to bust their ass to be able to provide for their kids. And I feel as though, even though, yes, my parents did that too, but I think that with today's day and age, it's even harder because, I mean, I forget where I was going with this. Oh my gosh. But anyway, it's the dynamic has changed. And I think that that's why parents sometimes rely too much on outside sources to protect their children, to help their children. And I think that that's why, you know, a lot of times it's how you were saying, like, because you were a teacher, there are only so many things that you can do. The rest of it has to come from the parent. The rest of it has to come from being at home. And unfortunately, too, there's a lot of parents out there who are not good parents. I mean, I remember seeing some kids, like the bullies from when I was younger, they didn't have a good life at home. And that's the thing too, is some of these kids, they have parents that aren't present in their lives, and they never will be, unfortunately.
Also worked at a low income school.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, as bizarre as it may sound, there's a lot of similarities between low income and, you know, because I was at a private school also. I'm not going to go into what those are, but there are some of the same needs there. And those children who are at the low income school, yeah, I mean, they were dependent upon getting their meals from the school. You know, I mean, their parents, you know, that didn't even speak English. You know, they weren't doing those things, and they were also trying to bust their butt. Plus, there were also parents that were on drugs. I mean, there's so many different factors that are involved in it. It's just like MLM. There's not an easy answer of like, well, we're just going to fix it with boom, magic, and presto, it all goes away. It's just not going to happen. It goes back to, I think, educating people about things. And these days, there are a lot of programs available for like low income, you know, parents and stuff to be able to go to. Now, whether or not they have the time or the interest to do it, but then they also face the thing that sometimes maybe these programs are only in English and they're not bilingual. So there's those factors that are going in. There are just so many factors. It's hard to control, and I think that it goes back to, there is responsibility for the parents, there is responsibility to society, there is responsibility for the government, and I don't think all of the responsibility falls on any one of those things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you 100% on that particular point, for sure.
Can you still see me okay? Because it's like getting darker outside.
Yeah, I can see. Yeah, I can still see you. I think the light from your computer is keeping you a little bright.
Well, what can I say is I don't have a light system, you know.
Oh yeah, no, it's already dark outside here, so it's fine. And I have lovely fluorescent lights, so.
I could flip on that, then it'll be off. If I need to, I'll turn on that light. But Myrtle, I guess to take it back to, I guess, our relationship with the FTC, because I keep on telling people to share their stories. And also I did a video where I showed people how to file with the FTC, because I think a lot of times people just don't know how. And honestly, when you go to the website, is it intuitive to do it? It's really not. You don't know exactly where to click. They don't make it really obvious. And so that goes back with like the user experience is kind of sucky when it comes to their website, you know. But I do think it's important to file and let these things be known, because if nobody is filing, then you can't get that paper trail. And we need to have that paper trail, just like we need people like you and me and, you know, others on content creators who are speaking out about the issue, the problem that there is with MLM overall in general. Because one of the things that I do not want to have happen is for my stepsons or whoever they marry to end up going through what I went through. I don't want them to say yes because it sounds appealing. I want them to be educated on this. And we don't have education in it, like in colleges and stuff. I know that there was, and I can't remember, it was a while back when I was doing some research, there was actually someone, and I can't remember who, I think I talked about it in one of my videos, but was looking to have basically courses on multi-level marketing and basically to legitimize the business model. And it's like, hey, we don't need that. You know, it's not a legitimate business model because of depending upon the recruitment. You know,
The thing is too is from some people that I've talked to, they've sent me screenshots and stuff, because I have, like I was saying, I have a younger crowd of 18 and up, but a lot of those kids that are currently in school, whether it be here in the US or overseas, they send me screenshots of specific events that are at their school or even career fairs, and there's people from MLM companies there. And I think that's so wrong. And it's because college kids are some of the people that they target. And there was a video of, there was a girl who she was actually, I think she was an Arbonne. I think it was Arbonne, but I stumbled upon her video on YouTube. And she was saying how she was a broke college student and she was going through I believe it was the ROTC program. So she's also in the military along with school. And she was trying to recruit college kids in a sense. This is just what I took from the video, because she was talking about being a broke college student. So I was a college student. I know what it's like to not have money as a college student and to want to be able to have a side hustle. And there's not enough education out there because their brains are still developing at that age. When they're in school, they're learning about so many different things that some of them don't think to have a brain that does critical thinking. Unfortunately, they're a robot. They go to school, they do their work just to get a grade, to graduate and get a degree and get a job at some office, because that's what society tells us that we have to do. And I think that because there's no education and because so many MLM people are coming out and saying that this is the way that marketing is going to go and yada, 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 and being all gung-ho about it. And it's not. It's blown up into this beast of multi-level marketing and it being considered, in some cases, a pyramid scheme.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I will say I am very grateful for Reddit and for there being r/MLM, you know, that and people on YouTube speaking out about different things, because that's what saved me, is I stumbled across it. And I do come across a lot of people who are in college that have been approached or what have you. And truth be told, when I was a Beachbody Hun, because my alma mater for my undergraduate program is not too far from me, and I went to a health fair and I was all there with my Beachbody stuff, ready to recruit and all that. And the names that I got, I didn't put them on my list or anything, because there was something just inherently, I was like, there's something about it just felt wrong. It felt off. But looking at it from the Hun perspective, because I was in the Hun mindset at the time, you're looking to build your team and you're almost willing to do anything and everything for it. And I think that there are people like you and me that will be like, you know, I just don't think this just isn't it. But there are other people, and maybe it's out of greed, I don't know. I mean, I don't know everybody's situation or anything, but maybe they were conditioned in some way when they were growing up. And I'm going to relate this to a movie that I saw, not a movie, it's a series. It's on Netflix called Dirty John. I don't know if you've heard of that or not.
No, but I'll watch it now that you said it.
It's really good, but it's not about anybody in MLM, but it's about a woman who ends up marrying somebody who's basically conning her. But he grew up learning how to scam people from his father. He watched his father do it. He ended up being in part of his scams, and it's like based on a true story. So I think there might be people also whose maybe their parents do business in a less than ethical way, and that's been modeled for them. So then they're going to do something in a less than ethical way because it worked for their mom, worked for their dad. I think that can happen as well.
Mm-hmm.
Not like I have proof on it. This is just, Alanda's theory. But,
yeah.
I mean, kids do take after their parents, so to speak. You model the behavior, and they're like, oh, okay, that's what I do. And I really think back of the person who signed me up initially in Beachbody. And I know that her father, may he rest in peace, I know he passed away, and now he was a businessman here. And it just kind of makes me wonder, because she's now in her 4th MLM, 3rd one since leaving Beachbody, since 2017. And it makes me wonder, it's like, did she learn some of these like marketing tactics and tactics that she's using from her father? And so then she is, putting that forth towards MLM. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
So it's just things that make me go,
Yeah, that's actually probably what she's doing. She learned that, and it's monkey see, monkey do. I mean, I wish that would have happened to me, because my parents were in an MLM, and I wish I learned from their mistakes, but I didn't. I joined 2 of them, unfortunately.
Well, when I was there was something that I was doing, some MLM, I don't remember which one it is, because I've done so many different videos on different MLMs, but I remembered, I was like, wow, there used to be this aloe vera juice that was always in our refrigerator. Like I don't know if my stepdad was in the MLM, but I know he brought the juice. And also there was like this little bottle of like aloe vera gel. And I can remember putting it on because I glow in the dark. I'm like Casper. And so if I get any sun on me, I get a sunburn. And I can remember putting that stuff on. And so when I was doing that research, I looked it up. I was like, oh, holy crap. That was from an MLM.
Mm-hmm. I think that's Herbalife, right?
No, it was, I think it's called Young Living, something living.
Forever Living?
Yeah. Forever Living. That's what it is.
Forever Living. Okay.
Forever Living.
So that one.
Yeah. Yeah. There it is. All the things. And it's like, oh my God, there's holy crap. It's like, I think if I sat down and started going through how many times my life has been touched by MLM, I'd be a little surprised, because until, like social media, MLMs operated, kind of behind closed doors. They were out there, but I think it was just less covert. There was something where it didn't feel so slimy. Because I can remember having like a jewelry party for someone, and it was fun, and I bought some jewelry, and nobody ever tried to recruit me. There was no emphasis on anything like that. I think that something really changed, and I think social media has been a catalyst for it to really explode in what we see now. I don't know if that's
the little puppy. Oh, there's another puppy in the box too. I saw the other one.
Must be with Mama. Okay, another show that I found on Netflix. Yes, I watch a lot of shows. So do
I.
Schitt's Creek. But there was an episode in season 1, and I don't remember which episode it was. I'm trying to look it up. But the premise is there's this very wealthy family, and they lose their money. But the father, at some time, as a joke, bought this town called Schitt's Creek. And they go and live in a motel there. And it's like, you and I would not want to stay in this motel. It's just like, it's bad. But at one point, somebody sends the mom something, and it's like all these products from whatever it's called, but it's an MLM. And she and her son do this like presentation. They have people over for a luncheon. And they're just like kind of coyly saying like, oh, who wants to try it? Well, then all the women start talking about, oh, well, I'm a director. I'm a this, I'm a that. Oh, that hit here about 3 years ago and everybody joined. And I was like, dang, that is it, dead on. It's really cute. I need to find it and let you know what it is. I think everybody watching this should watch that episode, because you'll relate to it. It was just seeing, again, MLM brought into a sitcom, and like, because there's Kristen Dunst's. Have you watched that one, Becoming a God in Central Florida?
No, I want to see that so bad.
Oh my gosh, girl, you are going to be like, yep, checkbox, check. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been meaning to watch that. I have to watch that, because when I saw the trailer, I was like, oh, that is a super Hunbot.
Well, yeah, yeah. You know, there are so many things that as I keep going down this rabbit hole of MLM stuff, and as I start looking more closely at the connection that it has with cultic practices, I start realizing like, well, gee, what success partners were about. You remember national wake-up calls, how you could win things, what that really was and what I thought it was. I mean, there's just so many different facets that I'm like, holy crap. And that's again why it's important for us to talk about it, for people to realize like how they are being brainwashed, how there is undue influence being used on them, how all of this works, because it's so subtle, you can't even realize it's going on. Okay, I was just mentioning to you, let me see if chat's going to come up. Yeah, okay, I'm going to send you this link. Okay, for our listeners, Monica is at her store, and so we pause every now and then when somebody comes in. And so I'm just like snooping around on my email, and I get this article because I have different, you know, Google alerts set up. And this is what it says. Holiday wine gift exchange is a pyramid scheme. And I just read through it real quick, and I'm like, holy crap, this is like that whole secret sister thing that I've seen floating around. And I'm sure, Monica, you've seen floating around, and you, our dear viewers, you probably have seen this as well. Don't do it. And it says here, you are scrolling through social media when you see an invitation to participate in a wine gift exchange. One common version reads, hi, wine drinking friends, let's do a holiday wine exchange. I did this last year and received so many bottles of wine. And the whole idea is you can get anywhere from 6 to 36 bottles. So it's a straight up, because you have to keep perpetuating that scam. Just like it's a game.
Yeah, and it's the same thing as that secret sister thing. You know, I forget, was it Savannah Marie?
Savannah Marie did a video on it.
Yeah, she did a video on it, and it actually said in there that, of course, this is like worst case scenario, but she did a ton of research on it, and apparently because it's kind of like a lottery in a sense, and you have to have a license for that kind of stuff. So potentially people who participate in something like that can actually get into legal trouble. That's worst case scenario though, because it is technically a lottery doing something like that, even though it's considered a pyramid scheme. But I mean, it can be also considered a lottery too. You know what? I think I have heard of this wine drinking thing.
Yeah, I had, but I think this is just a good overall warning to our listeners that if you come across anything that's a gift exchange thing on social media, run for the hills. Do not participate. It's not going to be a good thing. Now, if it is, and I do have an issue with this, and I'll bring up what my issue is with it. Working in corporate America, there used to be like there'd be a gift exchange and sometimes a white elephant thing. I can't stand the white elephant exchange.
I can't either.
I would always pick like something nice, you know, I go out of my way, and I would get something crappy. And the reason why it bugged me is that that's the only gift that I got, because I cannot tell you how many years as an adult I spent Christmas alone. And all these people are thinking, oh, it's a good little laughter on something. And I'm like, actually, it feels really shitty. So that's why it bugs me of having the white elephant. If you're going to do that, at least pick out something that's decent and not some janky thing from the dollar store that you can just chunk in the trash.
Yeah. Or even just do Secret Santa, and if you don't know the person, just get them a gift card.
Yeah, it's really that simple, you know?
Yeah.
A gift card, a candle from like, you know, I'm sure there's, not from Cincy, like Yankee. Go to Hobby Lobby, get a candle, whatever, not Cincy.
Yeah.
Picking on Cincy, but you know, I mean, I'm sure if there's a Hun doing a Secret Santa, you know they're going to put in their stuff into that little stocking.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That or, what was it? There was something, I think I heard it on the Dream podcast. It has nothing to do with that, but it was talking about how in this one particular town, since it was so small, that there were a lot of kids. So obviously all the kids have parents. So teachers and other people were slipping things into the kids' stuff, like little, brochures and everything to bring home to their parents. So even though it has nothing to do with what you just said, it's kind of similar.
But it does, because I've seen, like, and this was months back because it was like at the beginning of school. And I guess like a Hun gave her child something to be able to give to other kids and teachers. And it was all about basically promoting her side hustle or whatever. It's like, oh, good gravy. I mean, we've just gone into such a weird state of this stuff with MLMs. Because, like when I was a teacher, none of that stuff happened. But again, I put the onus on social media because it's allowed Huns to really be in the forefront. And at the same time, it's also given us a platform to speak out against it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's two sides to that coin. And hopefully there'll be enough people that are, educating people about the dangers of this business model so that we can, to me, it almost has to be like a slow choke, But the problem is that let's just pretend for a minute, just pretend with me, that boom, overnight here in the US, every single MLM is now outlawed and they've all shut down. Okay? What is to stop anybody from joining an MLM? That's in Sweden. That's in Peru. That's the problem, because this is a global phenomenon. It's not just sequestered to the US.
Yeah. I don't know. That would be something that, well, I mean, because are they still technically connected to the headquarters here in the US, or are they their own separate entity once they leave the US and go into another country? Legally, I don't know how that would work. Yeah.
I don't have that background, but well, now that you bring it up, because I remember when Beachbody was going into the UK, they had to like push it back or something because they had to have everything set up so that they could be in there because of the supplements. So I guess it might be depending on what type of product it is, Well, I mean, honestly, I don't know. I honestly don't know, but I don't see how anything like that could overnight be just, I mean, it would be great if it would be just all shut down overnight. But I think more of it being from a grassroots level of the slow choke.
Mm-hmm.
The more people know, the more people will say no. The more people who leave, who come across anti-MLM stuff, will be like, oh, it wasn't just me. I thought I was a loser. I thought it was my fault, because that's what you're trained to believe.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not. It's the business model. The more people who come across this, I think it is that goes back to that awareness. And then hopefully, if they just stumble across this video that goes out when we get all this finished, and they decide to start doing their own research, that's what I want people to do, is do your own research. Don't rely just on me and Monica and what other people are saying. Start going out there, investigate it yourself, because then you'll start seeing, oh, there is something to this. And what you're going to find is it's not pretty.
Yeah. I think that, what, this just popped into my head. I think that going back to like the FTC stuff, or the FTC portion, I think that the one thing, at least the way that they could start kind of regulating MLMs, because obviously we won't be able to just completely cut MLMs out, but I think that the next steps that the FTC should take is, one, tell every single MLM that they cannot make any type of financial claims, excuse me, unless they, talk about the income disclosure statement and tell people, hey, if you want to know on average what you will make, here, go to this income disclosure statement. But I don't think that they should be allowed to make any sort of financial claims, because it's a claim and it's not 100%. Then on top of that, they should, at one point, because in my personal opinion, MLMs don't believe in market saturation. I think that if there was a regulation on how many consultants you can have in each particular state or in each particular county, I think that if they were to cap the consultants at a certain percent, like I know that it'll take a lot of market analysis and a lot of research, because you have to also factor in like, okay, well, California is a really big state. They have a lot of really big, cities, and they have a larger population in certain cities. Whereas if you go to another state, like, what's a good example? Anywhere in, the Midwest that has, it's a big state, but doesn't have as many people or as big of a population. Of course, yes, that's going to cost the company money, but if you want to be a legitimate multi-level marketing company where you are really focusing more on the sale of the product rather than recruitment, then I think they need to have it capped off at a specific amount of consultants within certain radiuses in certain states. And obviously it'll vary between states, but I mean, I don't think that that'll ever happen. I think that that's too much work for the MLM. That's too much work for the FTC to do. I mean, it's simple market analysis that a freaking college kid could do that's studying marketing. But I mean, that's just my opinion.
I'm trying to open, because I have a draft paper, and I did videos on it in 3 parts on my channel: coercive techniques in business opportunity cults. Douglas Brooks wrote it, and he actually did a lot of litigation when it came to franchises, and he talks about how different franchises are in comparison to MLM. For instance, let's say if, I don't know, right here where I live, McDonald's opens up, okay? Well, then it would make no sense for a McDonald's to open up across the street, because we'd be in direct competition. There is something within franchises that you have like a district, you have territory. With MLM, you don't have any kind of territory or anything like that. And that's why I can be a distributor for It Works. My neighbor can be a distributor for It Works. The people across the street can be the distributor for It Works. And meanwhile, we're all, it's overly saturated within this area because of the business model.
It's funny that you said that, because I said that exact same thing in one of my videos recently, because I had someone in my anti-MLM Facebook group tell me that, all right, let me download this, tell me that their upline told them that market saturation isn't a thing, and they actually deleted that comment out of the whatever it was, the Facebook group or whatever, because it was negative energy. And it's like, no, that's not negative energy. That's facts. Anyone knows what market saturation. You don't even have to go to, like, I went to business school. You don't have to go to business school to know what freaking market saturation is.
Well, but it goes back to, they've been indoctrinated into the MLM cult, and they perpetuate that same myth. And put it out, because that's what they were taught to say. And then you, as a Hunbot, you end up parroting that back. You take on all of that thoughts. So that goes back to thought control. It goes back to this all fitting within the bite model and all of that. And I mean, right there, that's a prime example of shutting down critical thinking. Because they don't.
And that's part of the bite model.
Did you ever follow Ray Higdon?
He pops up on my Facebook now all the time, because I clicked on one of the ads to watch.
Well, I'm actually
it, and it was so cringy. Oh my gosh.
I'm in his group,
Go ahead.
Rank Makers. I paid for a lifetime membership to be in Rank Makers. And I can remember him talking about this, and because what I really did, and sometime I'll do a full video on this, a lot of what I did was self-indoctrination, because my original coach, really wasn't around, didn't do anything. And then when I was moved up under her coach, when she left, I've been in it for so long that I have been seeking stuff out on my own. And that's what I'm talking about, being self-indoctrinating, because I'm believing in the fantasy, I'm believing in the fairy tale, I'm wanting it to be true. So I'm trying my best to find ways to make it a reality for me. So hence, I come across Ray Higdon. It sounds like he has a lot to offer, and I can learn from him because he had success, yada, yada, yada. And I can remember him talking about this very distinctly. One of his lines, that you may have received this, and he taught this for you to do like in Facebook Messenger. Would you be open to working a side project to be able to say that? And he's like, you never want to say what the opportunity is or anything in Messenger, because then they'll go to Brother Google and they're going to see all of these things that aren't true. Well, that's a way of shutting down the critical thinking, so that you yourself as the Hun will not go out there and do the research, because all of that stuff, the us versus them, that comes into play. Everybody out there is against us. They're putting out all this stuff. That's not true. We're the only ones that know the truth. And this is the business of the future. And this will work. And that is like what you're talking about, this person like taking away because negative energy, it feeds right back into that same thing. It's like, we don't want people to see that stuff because it's not true. And then we have to go back to the law of attraction, because if you think it, you can create your own reality. If you think and believe it enough, it's going to happen. All of those things are working on you mentally when you are a Hun, but it's not something that people are talking about openly.
Yeah.
Sorry, long tangent there.
No, it's okay. I feel like, I don't know what I'm going to title this video. I don't even know. It's going to be an interesting title though.
Well, maybe you come up with the title so that we can do part 1 and part 2, and
Okay.
all, at least get the video edited into one long sequence, and, like be able to chop it and say like,
Yeah.
so that we can have 2 parts to it, because, yeah, I mean, but I think it's fine that we wander all over the place, because, I have watched other things. Like I said, I want to do more of a podcast type thing. And so I think the same thing of what we're doing is we're just kind of like meandering around something, and we have an overall theme, but we also talk about other things because we're having a perfectly natural conversation, not an actual interview. Like I have all these questions and I'm interviewing you, and let's just, go by this, because we're not journalists. We are 2 people with YouTube channels talking about stuff that we both are passionate about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That's very true.
So I think it's perfectly fine if we meander, because you know what? People get to see how we are as people talking to each other. It's one thing to, you can get people's personality, like on their own, but when you see people interacting with someone, I think you get to know them a little bit more.
Yeah, I agree. And then it's also because
Oh, you froze.
I think a lot of times people have this like anyone, I guess maybe not necessarily, that might not be the best word, but I feel as though sometimes people just want to be able to relate to someone else. And that's why I try to interact in the comment section as much as possible. That's why I have the anti-MLM Facebook group, and, I have my Patreon, and I try to give more attention to my patrons because they pay for it. So not to sound like, a terrible person or to be offensive, but I mean, they pay for that. So, but, that's why I try to be able to talk to people. And when I make my videos and stuff, I have deep dives and everything, but I try to bring my own little personality, and just so that people know that I'm just a regular person. I'm not just, some fake YouTuber, I guess you can say.
Well, I think we are both very real and honest of like who we are and with our experiences on our channel. I mean, yes, and we both do the deep dives into stuff, and we peel the curtain back, but we also can give our own spin, since we were in that world. And just like Chris can on Scientology, because he lived it. We lived it. Not to say that somebody who hasn't been in it can't understand it, but at the same time, it's like those nuances of how these things are working on you mentally, you haven't experienced. Like, I can't understand fully what Chris went through in Scientology. I can get it to a certain degree based on what I've been through with MLM, but when I hear him talk about like as the RFP that he had to do for 3 years in the Sea Org stuff, I'm like, holy mother of God, oh my God. It's like I can't fully understand all of that because I didn't undergo it and I don't want to. I would never want to. But I'm so glad that people like him and Leo Remini and Mike Render and all these people are speaking out about these atrocities. Just like I'm glad there's people speaking out about, you know, being anti-MLM, is bringing the reality of it to the forefront and not just, you know, sweeping it under the rug and forgetting about it. We have a platform to do that. There has not been this platform before. So how could people really talk about it? It didn't exist.
Yeah, and with the I watched a documentary on Scientology. I think it was on Netflix. This was like years ago that I watched it. Really, really good documentary. If I can remember what it's called, I'll send you a link. And while I was watching it, you know, they did a very good job of explaining it, but it's just like you said, I could never understand what it is like being in that particular, I kind of want to call it a cult, but I don't want to say a cult, but Scientology. um, but you know, I would never be able to actually fully understand because, yeah, I might have watched a documentary, but I didn't live it. I didn't have people coming after me because, you know, you see it all the time. When people leave, they get followed, people harass them. I never had that. So I could never understand what these people went through during their time with Scientology and after. And I know that there was a comment on our last collab where someone said, "Oh, you guys really don't like anyone who is not an ex-Hunbot or something like that." So, you know, it's not that we're trying to, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm not focused very well today. It's, you don't really truly understand unless you're actually in something, and it's not. I'm not trying to be offensive when I say that. It's true because there's a reason why there's secret Facebook groups for each MLM. There's a reason why those aren't public. There's a reason why the public doesn't see that. Yes, we can talk about it and I can talk to you about what they said in the group, but until you actually are in that, and until, for example, there was something that I had talked about in my It Works video. There was a person who reached out to me, and the person she had a special name because I, you know, gave her a different name because I didn't want, because there's lawsuits and stuff right now. But so her name was Peyton, and she was really terrible person, really, really, really horrible person. And the company took her side. Apparently, she spread all these rumors. She did a bunch of really bad and shady things. She took someone's inappropriate pictures and put it all over the internet. And it was her downline that she did that to. And like, yes, I can read that and I can feel for the person. I can have empathy for that person. And they can explain to me 110% how they felt when Peyton was doing this to them. But I'll never fully understand because I was not in her shoes. I was not humiliated to that point. So I will never understand that. And the good thing about all of the ex-Hunbots out there that are speaking out is we're able to give the people who won't speak out a voice. There's a ton of people in my anti-MLM Facebook group who have been in MLMs, and they tell me stories. They want to be kept anonymous. They don't want to tell me a lot of stuff. They just want to give me the general, you know, story. And they are extremely, incredibly knowledgeable, but they are afraid of going on the platform. So for us, this is our way of being able to tell their stories and also tell our own experiences. It doesn't diminish anyone who's anti-MLM who has never been in an MLM. It's just we have a voice on a different, what's the word? On not a different level, because each voice is the same. It's just we have a voice for a different perspective from someone who was in it. Whereas the anti-MLMers who were never in it, they can only look at it as an outsider. They weren't in those private groups, so they don't know the actual just terrible manipulative tactics, because as soon as you leave the MLM, boom, you're out of that group. Not every single group, but most of the time, especially if you leave on bad terms, I guess you can say. But I mean, that's why I know that I kind of went off on a rant there, but it's just, I want people to know that we're not diminishing any other anti-MLMer that's out there that has a voice that's speaking out about it. It's just, we have experience and we have a different perspective of it that we can bring to the table. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. And when you brought that part about Scientology, it's interesting because I was, to a degree, fair gamed. My very first video that I did on the Kangen water, before it was like the privacy claim was done, the guys that I was focused on didn't like it. So it was like mob dislikes to it. I got a cease and desist letter. And that's why I was able to reach out to Doug and be like, hey, Doug, here's this. And he's looking at it going, oh, you know, they have nothing. And he responded back. But meanwhile, as he's looking at that and everything, I mean, I'm getting bad reviews on my Facebook page. There were people that are doing that MLM that like started following me. I made my stuff on Facebook now more private, which I had been very open. I changed some other things on other social media because I didn't want them to find out where I was, but they started really coming at me hard. And allegedly, one of them is a former Scientologist. So as soon as I found, I met someone that knew one of them, as soon as I heard that, I'm like, no wonder they're coming at me so hard. Because, you know, I'm a teensy little channel. But I did expose exactly what they're doing. But now I've done a series on it, and I've been able to go even deeper because they gave me more time and also fueled my fire.
Yeah.
You know,
Did you see?
I'm sorry.
No.
I haven't been fair gamed like, you know, how these people from Scientology, but just even experiencing that little bit like that of how they came at me. You know, I started kind of like walking the dogs going, wow, is there going to be somebody out here that's going to, you know, it messed with my head, you know, of like going, wow. Yeah. But at the same time, I knew legally I was perfectly fine.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw, but the one person that tried to review or like give you a bad review or whatever on your Facebook, I actually went, did you see my comment?
I don't think I did.
Oh, because he put scam alert or whatever. So your friend had actually commented on it, and then I responded back to it, and I was like, oh, this person likes to like their own comments. Because I don't know if you saw, but he liked his own status and his own comment.
Oh, no, I didn't. I kind of wondered if that person was just a burner account. And, you know, it's like, how is it that I'm a scam when I am like sharing my experience and sharing my perspective on things that I find to be scammy? I'm not running a scam on anyone. I'm providing my opinion, and, you know, my experience dovetailed into that.
Okay, I saw you move a little bit too.
Oh, the joys of technology. And one day, actually, maybe I'll have a room that's like has good sound in it and stuff. But until then, you know, I have what I have. And you're frozen again. Can you hear me?
Oh no, you froze again.
Okay, yeah.
I can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you, but you're like half moving now.
Oh, fun. Now you
yeah.
Me too. Well, maybe this is the time we need to wrap it up.
Yeah. That's probably our sign.
But I have had such a good time with you. I always enjoy talking to you because it feels good to connect with someone who has had a similar experience, and because it validates what you've been through.
Yeah, exactly. And it's always great talking to you too, because you have, you know, a little bit more experience in MLMs than I do. And, you know, we're both here for the same exact reason, to take them down one MLM at a time.
Just one person quitting. You know, last night I premiered my video, and I think it was this person's first time to ever watch my video, and they asked me this question. So basically, like, are all MLMs bad? And the way I responded is it's the business model, because it's based on an endless chain of recruitment for, you know, an infinite time, and that's impossible to sustain. That is the issue. You know, you and I both, we don't have an issue with people selling products or anything like that. It is the business model and how it gives people the false belief that they are going to be able to do this easily, because with Beachbody, just help 3 people each month. Just 3 people. How easy is it to help 3 people a month? Is it easy?
No.
No, no. And I think that's why this whole thing with Enagic, the Kangen water, knowing that those machines are $4,000, that they get people to get loans and get credit to get them, just makes my skin crawl. It's like, how can you do that? And that goes back to what I said earlier, is I think that there are people that, you know, are unscrupulous and greedy, and possibly, you know, this type of behavior was modeled for them. When people get that far up and they're doing this kind of thing, like what those guys are doing, they know exactly what they're doing. They know that they are scamming people. They just don't want others to know. They want other people to believe that they're going to be able to have success, but they're not. And that's what irritates me.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's my rant.
All right.
Okay.